Good evening, everyone. I'm Jeff Rhodes with Crossroads Consulting. Man, what a busy day today. I should have an adult beverage somewhere around here, but I don't see one, so I'll wing it without. Hey, the reason I wanted to talk to you this evening is we're going to be doing a lot of videos, a series of videos on primarily the 7 pillars of our business outsourcing model that makes up Crossroads Consulting. It starts with professional employer organizations, or PEOs, something that Billy and I have, each of us have spent over 30 years in. Payroll also kind of goes hand in hand with the professional employer organization. HR has really become a hot button these days. The advent of HR in the last 10 years has just exploded on the scene. Then, of course, workers' compensation, employee benefits, which includes the health insurance piece. And I will tell you to keep an eye out for our health insurance interview with Stephen Davis of Liberty Run Benefits that we did today. We'll be posting really soon. That is awesome. You need to watch that because we go into detail on a lot of different health insurance options and issues that are facing groups, small groups, large groups as well. So you want to keep an eye on that. Private equity is something that I've been networking in for the last 20 years. So I really have some good connections along with venture capital, investment banking. So there's some areas that we can provide resources along with alternative financing, because money is the blood of business operations, and sometimes money can be hard to get. So there's a lot of options in the alternative financing arena that we can provide some very significant resources. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The following will be 50,000-foot introductions to all of these 7 business pillars that we operate under. And again, you'll see our link below. If you have any questions or would like more information, just reach out and give us a holler, give us a chance to earn your business. Thank you and have a good evening.
Hey, good morning. Jeff and Billy here with Crossroads Consulting. Hope everybody's having a great day. One of the topics we represent is a PEO. And Jeff, what is a PEO?
So, hey, by the way, I like your shirt.
Thanks. Yeah, yours too.
Yeah, so PEO is the short version of professional employer organization. Some people still call it employee leasing, which was the moniker that we were operating under back in the day. I mean, I started 34 years ago, August 1st, 1990.
We had hair.
We did. So yes, I started with a company called Employee Staff Leasing, which was built on the employee leasing arrangement. But it's very, very similar to the professional employer organization PEO as it relates today. I'm not so sure there was much of a different business model from leasing to PEO. May have been some legal things, but for all intents and purposes, the professional employer organization is built on the premise of aggregating unrelated businesses into a large buying group, creating a large buying consortium for things like technology, efficiencies in technology, employee benefits, workers' compensation, unemployment, HR, 401k. So the idea here is creating this large buying consortium. Now, it's considered a private market because not everybody can get into a PEO. The interesting thing about the PEO model, well, let me give you some statistics first of all. There are over 208,000 small businesses today that are using the PEO model. 208,000 businesses between 10 and 99 employees that are using PEO today. There's 523 PEOs in the country, okay? Which is interesting because Several years ago, there was actually more than 523, but what we're seeing is a consolidation. Larger PEOs are buying smaller PEOs. Private equity has invested billions and billions of dollars into the PEO model, which gives it some credibility, actually a lot of credibility when you think of it. Private equity usually invest to grow their investment. They look at businesses that have a great future. So for private equity firms to invest in the PEO model, and they have been for the last, 15, 20 years, that's a big deal. So there's been a lot of consolidation among the PEOs, but there are 523 PEOs in existence today. 4.5 million employees are in the PEO model. Over so $305 billion in payroll is run through the PEO model. So it's a force to be reckoned with. It continues to be a significant model. I think one of the most important things, one of the most important evolutions in the PEO model is the advent of HR, risk mitigation, compliance elements. We've heard a lot about DE&I. We hear about things like, hey, if you want to have some fun, Google how to sue my employer. Some scary things will pop up. But the whole idea behind the PEO is creating an opportunity for a small business owner to get not only the buying power of a large organization, but they also get the HR elements, the compliance elements, the risk transfer elements. One of the most important things, Billy, in a PEO model, as you know, is that transfer of certain liabilities. If you have your workers' comp through the PEO, it's their workers' comp policy, so they can do things on the pricing side that small businesses can't do. On the health insurance side, PEOs, some PEOs, particularly the larger ones, will have what's called a master group medical plan, where that's again a private market. It's not guaranteed issue. You have to apply, you have to be evaluated, and eventually you're either accepted or you're declined for the master group medical plan. So the PEO model is an extraordinary business model. It's evolved dramatically. Probably the most, I would say, probably the biggest transition has been in the HR side. I mean, when I started, I don't even think staff leasing had their own HR department. We never talked about HR,
Right.
but now it's huge.
Well, my kind of version of that is employee leasing was payroll, workers' comp, managed unemployment, maybe had some sort of a benefit program. And it kind of morphed into the professional employer organization. I think they wanted to get away from leased employees, as they would call it, in the larger companies. The big companies, ADP, Paychex, some of the larger companies kind of started this trend of calling it a professional employer organization because it really incorporated all facets of a business that's non-revenue generating. I mean, think about payroll, workers' comp, employee benefits, human resources, compliance. All of that is non-revenue generating to a business, right? So to be able to be a professional organization and offer that to small clients, to where the client focuses on what they do every day. You got into business to manufacture widgets, to be a great concrete, great painting, great manufacturing company. That's what you do best. You didn't get into it to do all of the stuff that we just talked about. So it's a great partnership. It's a professional partnership with another company that this is all they do. They specialize in these areas, and the economies of scale and the efficiencies make the PEO a very economical way to go about it. I mean, you see, partial CFO, partial CEO type programs out there. And when you're a 10-person company, you can't afford a payroll benefit specialist, risk specialist, retirement specialist, HR specialist. You can't afford it. With this type of a program, it allows you to use it as you need it. You're basically part of this group. You're paying a small fee every payroll, and it makes it easy to use.
So let me give you a little bit of an analogy. When I was working for a large publicly traded PEO, I was doing a lot of work with financial services related entities. particularly wealth management firms. And what I was working with groups from like Wells Fargo or Raymond James, Stifel, a lot of times the wealth managers, those guys would leave those big wirehouses. They would leave Wells Fargo. I did a ton of business with Wells Fargo wealth managers breaking away from the big mothership and starting their own firm. And obviously, the first thing that they would say to me was, "Well, how are we going to put together a benefits platform? Because I've got to attract employees, and I'm only going to have 5 or 6 employees to start with." I said, "Well, look, here's the PEO model, and this is where it's going to give you a level playing field." And what was remarkable is when we looked at the Wells Fargo employee benefits that they were under enrolled in while with Wells Fargo, and then we showed them the PEO benefits end to end, talking medical, dental, vision, life, disability, and all of the other ancillary benefits that a PEO can offer. These guys were amazed to see that their little 5 or 6, 10 employee firm could actually have better benefits than what they were getting at Wells Fargo. And I said, man, that's the whole premise behind the PEO. And then you get all of the HR, the compliance element. But that's a real life story, and it helped these wealth managers break off from these big firms, start their own firm, and be on a level playing field.
Right. So it makes sense to partner with a PEO, allow you to focus on your day-to-day operations, growing and running your business, and then let them manage all the non-revenue generating tasks. Let them be your partner to bring, when you're trying to recruit as a small company and you're trying to recruit against the big guys, it's tough to match up and compare benefits to benefits. And basically, when you partner with a PEO, they have thousands of employees. They have a Fortune 500 benefit package already. And this allows you like even playing field. Could you imagine? We see it every day. The Yankees versus the Rays. Huge budget, minimal budget. They got to fight and scrap, but it would make it easier if their budget was the same, right? So basically what you're doing as a small business is you're partnering with a large company, already has them in place. You make one phone call, you get it all taken care of. It really simplifies the way you do business.
And what we do at Crossroads Consultants, because we've had such a lengthy time in the PEO world, we know the market, we know the nuances. There are certain PEOs that are a great fit, certain PEOs that are not going to be a fit. But understand this, it's a lengthy process in getting a quote from a PEO because they need a lot of data. Data is critical. Workers' comp data, employee benefits data, payroll data, 401k data. It's time consuming. And when you get that PEO quote, each one is a little bit different. Mm-hmm. There's some nuances there. So what we do is we help you find the right solution. If it's a PEO, we'll look at multiple PEOs, and because they have different health insurance carriers, Florida Blue Cross or Blue Cross in general, Aetna, United Health, Kaiser, Tufts in certain markets. There's regional carriers. So it all depends on what your business model, but we're here to save you time, find the right solution. If we need to make a pivot down the road, then we can help you with that as well.
So in closing, if you want to take a look at a PEO and see if it's a fit for you, give us a call or go to our website at Crossroads Consulting, XRHODES.com. Hey, good morning. Welcome back. Billy and Jeff here with Crossroads Consulting. One of the services that we provide to our clients is just simple payroll, right? There's a lot of different programs out there, a lot of big companies, a lot of small companies. Payroll is great for one employee monthly. I remember when we first got started, you start making X amount of money, you got to start running payroll. And even though we were in the business and I was using QuickBooks, you don't want me doing that. So I messed it up, right? So I outsourced it and went to a payroll company as well. So it works for one employee on up to thousands. I mean, when we both worked for ADP Paychecks back in the day, and we had all types of clients. And payroll has really evolved. I remember when we got into this, 30 some odd years ago, payroll was done on a green bar reporting, manually. It was crazy, no technology. And then for the next 20 some odd years with the big guys that I had mentioned, they had all the technology. They had the R&D to simplify payroll and put it on our computers, on our tablets, on our phones, things like that. These days, with the technology advancement, even the small companies have great software products, and we represent one of the best software products out there with iSolved, and our vendors use it. It's a very good, solid, easy to use payroll software. So if you're just processing it by yourself, or you're using one of these companies that you don't get to talk to anybody, you're just processing it, and you want to have a little bit more personal feel, we specialize in a very customizable, easy to use, efficient, and cost effective payroll service. So give us a call. Our information is down below. Crossroads Consulting. Hey, good morning, everybody. Billy and Jeff here with Crossroads Consulting. Today, one of the services we're going to talk about that we offer is human resources. Human resources is such a big part of a business, whether you're small or large. It focuses on culture, laws, compliance. It can make a company successful. It could break a company if you have, the wrong policies in place. So one of the things that we have done is partnered with different companies with human resource packages, but also individuals that have decided to go out on their own and become fractional HR consultants. So based on our conversations with you as a business owner and what your needs are, we can determine what direction to go. And man, in the 30 plus years that we've been doing this, we've really seen some interesting HR situations out there.
Man, I'll tell you, every time the federal government or a state throws out new regulations or new requirements upon a business, invariably it's going to touch HR. And over the years, the amount of government regulations that have come into the workplace, and let's face it, we live in a litigious society, and you see the advertisements on TV and on the radio, hire me, and Google search is incredible. If you're thinking about, man, I'm being mistreated at the workplace or whatever. But look, here's the thing about government regulations and all of this stuff. Cottage industries are created, and in our evolution and being in the PEO business, when we started, there was no discussions about HR. Now you have firms that's all they do is HR. They don't do anything with payroll. They specialize in HR. We have some very, very competent partners that if you want a payroll service, but you need support from an HR perspective, we have some great resources that we can bring to the table at a very nominal expense. The thing I like about outsourcing is when you hire an employee, you're taking on liabilities. But if you outsource, there's really no liabilities. It's not the same package of liabilities that you have if you hire somebody.
Exactly.
So the interesting thing about HR is, yes, it provides a layer of protection for the business owner. It allows the business owner to be proactive versus being reactive. I got a letter in the mail from an attorney. Oh my God, what do I do now? That can still happen, but if you have, everything starts with an employee handbook, right?
Right.
Employee handbook, job descriptions, policies, procedures, get everything in order. Dot your I's, cross your T's. Life will be a whole lot easier.
Well, and the way that you just explained HR right there, it's kind of reactionary, right? And everybody thinks, oh, HR, why do we even have to have this? But take a look at the companies, and especially if your business is going to be growing and you have an employee that is a good key employee, but you don't know exactly how to take them to the next level, by partnering with an HR company to like help with succession planning and say, hey, listen, I really want to grow. I need this employee to be trained a little bit more, to be educated, to be able to manage more employees so that I can go off and grow this other division or grow a business over here. So it's not always just well, I got to have these policies and procedures in place so that my folks, if they do something wrong, I know how to write them up. It's also like, hey, if you do something good, I now know what direction I want to take you. So you got to really look at HR as the best of both worlds, right? It's out there to protect you on this hand, but it's out there to help you advance employees and position your internal staff and your culture for growth.
Yeah, that's a good point. Culture is so important these days. A lot of times, the HR professional that you hire, keep in mind too that oftentimes business owners and key people in the business, they're wearing multiple hats. They might be wearing 5 different hats. The challenge with that is you are pulled in a lot of different directions. You become more reactive versus proactive. But from a culture perspective, especially in a tight job market like this,
Mm-hmm.
and then protecting the business, that culture thing is really really very important. And sometimes business owners take it for granted or they downplay culture.
Yeah.
But man, you could lose a really good employee simply because things aren't going. But also, there's 4 generations in the workplace, maybe 5 generations
Mm-hmm.
these days. So yeah, HR can be a really really important, valuable component of your business.
Absolutely. So if you want to learn more about human resources and what we can provide you, take a look at the link down below. You can reach us there. Crossroads Consulting, Billy and Jeff. Thank you. Hey, good morning. Billy and Jeff here with Crossroads Consulting. Today, one of the services that we want to talk about is workers' compensation. So, through our partners, we have multiple ways that we can provide workers' compensation. Different industries have different classifications, different ratings, the states have different requirements. Here in Florida, you can have a low risk business and have up to 3 employees before you have to get workers' comp. If you're in the construction trade and you hire that one employee, even though they're part-time, you have to have workers' comp. So there's a lot of rules that go on with it. And one of the things that we do is we talk to new businesses, existing businesses about their workers' comp and see whether your claims history are good or you're having problems with audits. And we try to utilize our technology and services, whether it be a professional employer organization or whether it be one of our payroll vendors that allow us to tie it in together and make it very efficient. Pretty much everybody should have workers' comp. If you have one employee, and you don't have it and they have a claim, you're on the hook for it. So and God, I remember when we started way back, a roofer used to be like $76 per $100 of payroll. If you're not understanding that, we'll dive into that later. But with the management of risk and claims and all that, that rate's like $8 a hundred now. It's really come down. So a lot of people that are starting businesses today are like, holy cow, workers' comp's really expensive. But if you go back 20 years, it was really expensive in Florida back then. Every state has their rates. Some states are monopolistic, like Ohio. I believe Washington State. That means the state provides the workers' comp, and private carriers like
Zurich.
Zurich. That's who I was looking for. They don't have a policy in that state. So workers' comp is a necessary evil. It protects the employees. It protects the employer.
Yeah, it can be quite expensive depending on the type
Yeah.
of business that you're in. Trades, anything that's a high risk component. there's a lot of elements to the workers' comp arrangement. We do like the PEO model in a lot of cases because it's pay as you go. They can provide some discounts on workers' comp. But probably the most important thing with the PEO model is you're under their workers' comp policy. So any claims that you have, it goes against their workers' comp policy. So your experience mod is kind of put to sleep for a while. But the thing about the PEO and having their workers' comp, if you have a shock loss claim, a high dollar claim, uh, your rates don't necessarily go up because the PEO, in many cases, absorb those claims, or maybe they'll raise you a little bit, but not to the extent that you would if you were on your own. So there's some elements behind the private workers' comp market or the PEO market that can really benefit an organization. There's things out there. Sometimes the risk is so substantial that the PEO is not allowed by their carrier, whether it's Zurich, whether it's other carriers, they're not allowed to write that particular risk. But then they can go to the open market and you can still have the PEO model without the workers' comp. And if you get to a point where you're spending $1 million plus on all of your liability policies, commercial liability, business liability, auto, workers' comp, we have resources that can look at things like captives, like single parent captives, self-funded type workers' comp programs. The key is it really is taking the time. And this is really the challenge with business owners, is taking the time to look at these different types of insurance products.
Yeah, and back in the day, PEO was the only way to go if you wanted pay-as-you-go workers' comp, right?
True.
And pay-as-you-go means every time you run a payroll, your workers' comp is included. So at the end of the year, your audit is nil or none, right? Because you know exactly what your payroll is. Through technology and the way the insurance companies are now working with payroll-only companies, that same technology is there. So we have options, whether it's PEO, payroll only. You can still bundle your workers' comp with it, minimize your audits at the end of the year, streamline those payments every time you run a payroll or monthly, and it makes it very easy. So for more information, check out our link below at xroads.com. And thank you for listening to Crossroads Consulting.
We are rolling.
Hey, good morning. Jeff and Billy here with Crossroads Consulting. Hope everybody's having a great day. One of the benefits that we offer is, well, hey, employee benefits. That's a benefit that we offer. Listen, there's a lot out there with employee benefits. It's really a hot topic. You hear it in the political views and on the news channels every day. The cost of it, the lack of offerings through the plans, the unknowns, with employee benefits. And we've been doing this a long time. We work with some great employee benefit specialists out there that know the laws, know all the plans, know everything that goes on with it. And what we do is when we're meeting with our clients, we sit down, we figure out what their needs are. We gather data like the demographics, their current rates, current plans, renewal rates. I mean, this is all data that the carriers are wanting, right? Remember back in the day where you didn't have to provide any of that. You would just get the census demographics and we would come back with a claim, right? But the health companies have gotten smart and they're like, well, because you're under 100 employees and we can't ask for personal data per se, we're going to determine whether you're a good risk or not based on what your renewals are, right? If you're getting your renewals and it's only like 10%, that's a pretty good increase. I mean, we don't like any increases, but let's face it, 10's better than 30. And if your renewal is 30%, then they know that something has gone on with your plan, with your claims history that year. And so those are the items that they look at. So, I know that we've had some big cases lately and we've learned a lot about it. And just over the years, it's been an issue. It's one thing that, keeps companies calling us is because that's what we do. We specialize in working with this. And I know you've had a ton of experience with that as well.
Yeah, the health insurance, ever since Obamacare or ACA was passed, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago, the health insurance field has changed dramatically. The whole underwriting process has changed. A lot of times people, well, back in the day, I'm not going to give you an invoice because I don't want you to see what I'm currently
Right,
paying.
right.
Just give me a quote. Um, it doesn't work that way, not anymore. Because I'll tell you one of the key things about health insurance. If you have a group, say you have 30 people or even 60 people or more on your medical plan, and your current rates are high versus somebody across the street who has a similar company, similar profile, but their rates are a lot lower. Well, the premium that you're paying has a risk element built into it. So, for instance, if you got a $2,000 deductible PPO and the single coverage is $750 a month, well, that tells me right there that you may have only had a 10% renewal this year, but historically you've had some fairly high renewals. So the premium that you're paying now does disclose to some extent a risk element. If your premiums are really low, then you got a pretty darn good group. Your premiums are really high on a similar plan, there's an indication. So that's why carriers want to look at what your current rates are, but they also want to look at the plans because your plan might be a little bit different. Plans don't match up precisely.
Well, that and you have a 20-person company here with similar demographics to this 20-person company. Over here, you only have 8 people on your plan. Over here, you have 18 people on your plan. Participation weighs a lot into what your premiums ultimately will be. That's one of the factors, right? I mean, if you're only having 8 people on your plan, well, who are the people in your group that need the insurance? Those 8 people. The others, so diversification, um,
Well,
participation,
you run into that adverse selection.
adverse selection. Yeah.
If your participation is trending downward, your premiums are going to go up a little bit higher. The only people who are going to stay on the medical plan are the people who are going to use it. But the other element with Obamacare and the government exchange, I don't know if this is by intent or by accident. I'll leave it up to you to decide. But the government exchange is actually competing with small groups or insurance, small group insurance plans because younger people are gravitating towards the exchange if they can qualify for a subsidy. But there are some laws and some rules that expose people who go to the exchange get a subsidy if the employer is offering affordable health care. So there's some elements of it, but make no mistake about it, there is competition with the government exchange and small groups, and it is impacting participation. The carriers are still holding to, for the most part, the 50% participation. At least we see that more on the PEO side. Open market, they get away from that a little bit. Maybe they'll take less than 50%. But at the end of the day, I don't care what market you're in, your premiums are going to be impacted if your participation is low and it's trending downward.
Yeah, it's one of those things that just make you scratch your head. So if your agent, your broker is asking for a lot of demographic information and plan reviews and all that, it's so that they can get you the best information. The day of not giving and getting a good rate just because they want your business, it's out the window. And a lot is determined by the census with some of these national prescription databases that if any of us have gotten a prescription, a legal prescription, that is, I got to throw that out. You get a legal prescription, it goes into this database and they're able to tell what is being used. So, these are all things that we have to look at, and you have to have patience. It's frustrating. Costs are going up every year. That we sometimes can get creative and save companies money, but there's a strategy there based on what an employer wants to pay versus the participation, and sometimes we have to increase a little bit here in order to get higher participation. And it's a whole strategy.
Yeah, the last thing I would say when looking at a group medical plan is try and have more than one plan, or try to have more than two plans in your portfolio. Typically, PEOs go to 4 to 5 different types of plans, but there's a strategy involved, a combination of the four metals: platinum, gold, silver, bronze. But even looking at the HSA plans,
Mm-hmm.
the HSA plans are kind of interesting. There's some strategy around the HSA plans, but have a diversified portfolio of plans, but attach a strategy with your combination of plans, because that can help a great deal in participation.
Yeah,
So there's
yeah,
a lot that goes into it. More information is actually better than less information.
yep. So if you want to learn more about that, stay tuned to Crossroads Consulting, xroads.com. We're going to bring on a couple really good experts that understand the benefits, and we'll be doing that show here down the road, and we'll let you know. Thank you.
Greetings. My name is Jeff Rhodes. I am half of the Crossroads Consulting team. Billy, the other half, is on call, on duty. So I want to talk to you about some of the things that we do. Among the many things that we do, from a PEO perspective: payroll, ASO, employee benefits, workers' comp, 401k, all of that stuff, is a private equity element to our business. Now, we're not private equity people ourselves. I've spent the last, I don't know, 18 years networking with private equity and the ecosystem surrounding private equity. So I've gotten to know a lot of players in the private equity world, large, small, even venture capital, family offices. So part of what we do in our service model, or our business model, is to help businesses in a lot of different ways. If I've gotten phone calls from people, from business owners, say, "Listen, Jeff, I got this problem. Is there anything you can do to help me with it? Maybe it's alternative financing. Maybe, I'm thinking about selling my business. And I've heard about private equity, and I noticed on your website that you guys have an element of private equity. What exactly do you do with regards to private equity?" Um, just to give you a little background on myself, many years ago, I was a stockbroker, and I was very fascinated by businesses, how they grow, what causes people to invest in a business, what causes people to not invest in a business. Look, there's a reason the stock price is $1 versus a stock price of $1,000. So I was always fascinated by businesses and the financial aspects around businesses. And when I started networking in the private equity world, it's just an absolutely fascinating world of private equity. Private equity touches more business today than ever before. Granted, the internet has a lot to do with it. Venture capital touches more businesses today, more startups. Venture capital is more responsible for helping startups get off the ground. If you're not familiar with the difference between venture capital and private equity, very quickly, venture capital is your startup, pre-revenue for the most part. These are the guys who will take the flyers. These are the guys who will invest in ideas that are still on a whiteboard. These are guys who will still invest in companies that really don't have a lot of initiative yet. They haven't gotten any traction. The private equity guys look at companies that are well established for the most part, have revenues anywhere from 5 million and on up. Yes, there's some private equity firms that will go below a $5 million revenue company, but for the most part, the private equity world, venture capital, and even family offices, they are touching more businesses today than ever before. It's absolutely incredible what private equity, the private investors have done with businesses not only in the US, but around the world. The impact that they've had on economies is absolutely incredible, and it's not going to stop. They estimate that in the private equity sector, they call it dry powder. There's over $1 trillion of dry powder, $1 trillion. All that is money that needs to be deployed. That's money that institutions, high net worth individuals, accredited investors have placed into the funds of private equity so that they can deploy them into privately held businesses. Um, it's an interesting world, and a lot of people don't really understand. How do I reach out to private equity? Okay, so this is some of the areas that we can help you. I can make introductions. There's people that are professionals at evaluating companies because the dollar value of your business obviously is critical. There's investment bankers. Typically, they work with larger companies, companies with revenues of 10 million, 20 million, 50 million and on up. But that's when the high stakes really come into play. But you know what? Everybody has a value. If I want to sell my business, I have an idea of what the value of my company is. But that's where it gets down to the nitty gritty. That's where it's challenging is the valuation of your business. So the financials are absolutely critical. Quality of earnings, all of the P&L statements, all of your financial statements, they have to be in order when you start looking at how to sell my business. So there's a lot of things that we can do. There's professionals that we can turn you on to. It all depends on what you're looking for. It doesn't necessarily have to be private equity that could be your potential buyer. It could be a strategic acquirer. It could be an employee arrangement on the sale. But anyway, to make a long story short, um, I love having conversation with business owners on how they want to grow their business, how they want to exit their business. It may take some alternative financing. Excuse me. But there's some things that we can do to help you at least get started. Again, the website below, crossroads.com, is our firm. Happy to talk to you about anything related to private equity alternative financing. Greetings, I'm Jeff Rhodes with Crossroads Consulting. The other half of the team is out on duty. I want to talk to you a little bit about what we do in helping companies with the financing of their business and the financial needs that they may have with their business, whether it is buying equipment, whether it's expanding organically or making a strategic acquisition. Now, understand Crossroads Consulting, we look at a lot of different things for businesses. We want to be a resource for businesses in a lot of areas. We want to be that resource where a business owner says, the one phone call, problem solve thing. Jeff, I have a situation with my business. Is there anybody you know? Is there any professionals or is there anything that you can do directly to help me resolve this issue? Financing becomes an issue, particularly if traditional banks may not be an avenue. Maybe you don't have the financial arrangements that are acceptable enough for traditional banks. So there's some areas that we can look in to help you with the financing needs. I'm working with a company right now. They've got some pretty good financials. They've been in business about 20 years. They're running about 17 million in revenue, but they want some additional working capital. So I've got some professionals that I'm working with, some people that are career finance guys, and we've had some conversations, made some introductions, and we're moving forward. They're in the process of collecting financial data, which is absolutely critical. Anytime you're looking at any kind of a financing arrangement, yes, the financials are going to be there, whether it's asset-based lending, whether it's accounts receivable. If you're unable to get loans from traditional banks, there's organizations out there that are willing to lend money, and the financial data is going to be critical. So I do have a lot of connections. I've spent many years networking with private equity and the ecosystem surrounding private equity, which always includes financing, whether it's mezzanine, whether it's alternative financing. There's a lot of resources out there. There's a lot of money out there to be put to work. It all depends on the right fit. So, if you have any further questions, feel free to contact us through our website. Our contact information is all over the website, and you can see the link just below this video. Thank you for your time.